العلاقات الإنسانية وشكلت جميعها مخزونا تاريخيا وثقافيا.
All have permitted a civilization that followed. These civilizations have participated in different history and drawing its symptoms that has been a wealth that all its features are still present up till today. The civilizations meet together and enrich each other. And I could say that what that unites people is not only a one religion or one doctrine or one political doctrine, but it is something that unites all people together. This is civilization. The cultures are transferred from one place to another, and in order to be progressed, it has to be changed from one cultural background to another in order to acquire this maturity. Cultures give to each other. The ancient Egyptian civilization has definitely given to the Greek civilization, and the Greek gave to the Romans. This was more philosophical, and the other is a practical one. Then the Romans became the Byzantines. The idea that they exchanged the concepts each other, they take the idea and they put it in another context, in another country, an atmosphere, and hence it's going to be a totally different culture. Dialogue of civilization and the ability to cope with different countries, with all the parties involved carrying opposing ideas, and the ability to dealing with different political, religious, and cultural ideas. And the goal of such dialogue is communication and interaction among nations. This is excellent that there is a communication between people, and the idea that Alexander the Great had reached this in year 331 BC, before Christ, when he ordered 10,000 marriages on daily basis on one condition, that it should be from the people knowing each other. Egyptian will marry a Greek or a Persian and so on. The Alexander himself gave a good example for that when he married the daughter of the Persian king. And the main aim behind this was to have a single family for humanity. Ibn Khaldun says that different communities still needed to communicate despite their existence and formation. Such communities has resorted to contact with the surrounding environment, and then they have started with new means of communication in order to improve and develop them. When Islam came with the Arabs from the peninsula to Africa in Egypt, and then went to North Africa, then crossed to Spain, the irrigation system that was employed in Syria was applied in Spain because they did not have this technology. Today the world witnesses a communication technology revolution that made it a small village. It has made the whole world closer to one another. It is enough to know that 200 years ago, in order to convey a message to a relative in the US, it needs 6 months. There was only the ships at that time. In addition, that the seeker of knowledge has the entire world in his hands nowadays. But some has the idea that the communication civilization did not only contribute to cultural and communication exchange, but it is a hegemony, how people who are adopting one cultural system can interact together. This is the defect of globalization that gave the strong party to control the others. Movement of culture is very important, but the social media and the television and the movies are things I don't believe in them. They are preset for a certain goal. I do not care a lot about this goal, but I care that people would move, particularly the youth, particularly that they should live in the modern world. Just I have an integration with other scientific cultures that are more scientific, like those of America, Europe, and today China as well. But I do not integrate with the Chinese culture. I take what is made in China only, but unfortunately, in order to compare this with the modern world, we do not pass the science to each other, but we pass the results of science only. I do not take the science behind any of electronic devices we import that came. I do not have the science. I take only the product, and I believe that like this, I'm okay. No, they benefit from me. People cannot begin the march of humanity without paying attention to the past and to learn lessons than to benefit from the knowledge of the other nations. In order to carry the torch and continue the journey, it is our duty towards the coming generation to protect the human heritage and not to deliberately be looted and stolen in order to keep the human development and the emergence of a new civilization that participates in the development of humanity. Hence, and according to this film, we have a big group of challenges. Among these are the meeting of individuals and the challenge of methods of communication, which is a new challenge we are confronting. I'm going to give His Royal Highness Hassan ibn Talal to give his opinion. Previously, you have spoken that opening to other cultures was an option in the past, but at present is a reality that we have to confront. In the name of God, the most compassionate, and may God's peace and prayers be on the Prophet Muhammad, his companions, kins, and followers. Dear participants, may God's peace and blessings be upon you all. Mr. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, my dear participants, particularly, I would like to mention, though I am exceeding 70 years of old, I would like to address the youth who are participating in this meeting. If there are certain ages to be participating, we would have excluded 3/4 of those with us in this hall. According to the definition of the youth, would you please allow me to refer to the other quarter of those participating in this hall that we are not important. Those who are important are the youth who are in millions, the Arab, African, Asian youth, the youth of the whole world. And hence, would you please allow me to start my speech in an international single civilization that we will be influenced and to influence it, as my friend Mr. Mercy from Romania said, world civilization, its impact and how it is influenced, and hence anthropologists, the policies that would serve a human being and to qualify them and enable them in order to have an international citizenship. The cultures are struggling, but the international civilization and the civilized human would not resort to this bloodshed method in imposing his opinion on others. And hence, when we speak about two wars, global wars, that were misnamed as civil European wars, and we paid the price of that. We, the third world countries, and third world countries are the first countries. We have paid the price of that war. Prince Adenauer, in his last speech in front of the German parliament, he said that Almighty God had put limitations for the misdeeds of the human beings, but he did not put limits. He did put, he says, I'm sorry, but he put restrictions for the logic of the human being, but did not put restrictions for the misdeeds of the human being. Here we speak objectively. We speak about what has been recalled by President Senghor from Senegal, the Saint-Touch Raymond, in other sense, that yes for the bloodshed and no for integration. We are speaking about independence, the Malantra independence, in order to keep the identity, and I do respect your identity, and I do respect the right of expressing your identity, whatever this identity is. But at the same time, we should work together in order to develop the common creative among ourselves. As Imam Shatibi said, that we should maximize the things that in the feminist movement in Egypt, we wanted to develop a new concept for an international new order that is in front of the General Assembly of the United Nations, and this is an international human system. And we have confronted the three challenges: the human being and his brother, the human being confronting nature, and the human being in confronting man-made catastrophes like nuclear catastrophe, for instance. And the topic of Tokushima was the latest disaster taking place. And we have discovered in this tendency the United Nations has benefited from different topics in the recommendations. It changes the names of certain organizations. For example, the Organization of Confronting Natural Disasters became the OCHA, which is to work for humanity. Once again, I would like to say that there is synthetic separation between protection of environment, the place, and to enable human being in order to shoulder the responsibility of the international citizenship. Within this, I would like to say that when I was honored to work with Dr. Midhat Hassanin in the International Commission, we made law serve all people, and we found that there are a lot of restrictions in the countries when we speak about the containing citizenship, and maybe this is due that when we say to contain citizenship, this is a concept that stands against some benefits of the community in any of the countries. We do not interfere in the sovereignty of the states, but we would like to say that the human international movement is influenced positively or negatively by the role of the media, the role of those who participate in media. But when we speak about the Water International Report for the International Commission that is comprised of 18 members and met in Geneva a few days ago, we spoke about the report of existence because of water. There is an international challenge of water that does not respect borders among countries. We spoke about the Blue Nile, and within the White Nile and water, and had the honor to chair a committee called the Red Peace. We spoke about Niger, Danube, these countries that were able to participate in the principle of citizenship. Like, for instance, the Lake of Constanta combines Austria, Germany, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and it is owned to 300 inhabitants of 300 cities, in the sense that water have exceeded government, exceeded the official institutions, and now is part of partnership that is required. The question to be posed, will humanity win this battle among those three challenges? Human being, the human being, will they exceed politics in order to reach policies according to their wishes only? the behavior references like the Declaration of Amman, the international declaration that has been directed to terrorism and extremists, Marrakesh Declaration, other declarations in the community who have the majority of Muslims like 2016 in different capitals. These declarations and statements in itself would penetrate the painful reality, or 65 million refugees are living in these areas. 80% of the refugees of the world are Muslims. When my name was given as a chair for the he told me we cannot accept this to be chaired by a Muslim, by an Arab. I said any Arab Muslim or me in particular. He told me you in particular. Why? Because you are going to stand and tell the Islamic world and to the whole world that 80% of the refugees in the world are refugees from wars, 42 civil wars between the Muslims in the Muslim countries. What are you doing against this? To have an institution, a bank for reconstructions after the war. To have an international fund for alms and takaful. And I would like to remind you that zakat is not only for the Muslims, but it is for humanity as a whole. In the name of God, the merciful, compassionate, you human being, he's reading parts of the Holy Quran. Almighty God did not speak about the believers only, or He did not specify any religions, including the Muslims. He said, you human being. So where is our humanity? In employing the youth in front of such challenges and to enable them, to give them employment, to consider them as the pressing lobby for having peace. I'm going to meet 3,000 girls and boys from the different countries of the world, hosted by Jordan, for the International Forum for Science, for World Science Forum. And our title is Science for the Sake of Peace. According to this standard of networking with scientific institutions, we can address different nationalities all over the world. But networking in education and science would require an international benchmarks and criteria to apply on all. When we speak about our universities, about institutes, our intellectual centers, we say those that are recognized internationally in different fields. And I say that the youth, as I have said previously, are a category that are communicated together, as well the migrants are citizens despite their origin. When we speak about the Palestinian refugees, and I have loved to have with us President Abbas, as he was in yesterday's session, to speak about the bank and says so many million refugees, not Arabs or Palestinians, these are refugees. When we speak about refugees in Jordan, he says they are so many million refugees, but in Jordan the number of population have been doubled since the 90s up till today by 87% more. Why? Because we are hosting 48 different nationalities. The best method of communication with the 48 different nationalities is the call centers to communicate with the youth for 24 hours a day. And as you can see, the information are there for the intimate dialogue between us and between the different nationalities. This is the good governance. This is what has been said by Javé in French language, that comprises between the management of affairs and the governance, to remind us of the ethics of our meetings. Our meetings are only for sorrow or for happiness, but it is not working in order to fill the gap between development and peace and security. And I would like to say that the real security has been said by the Almighty God, that He has fed them after their hunger. The hunger that we are speaking about is the intellectual hunger, in order to reach to the human being through an intermediate is sometimes misleading, due that the objectivity is less. How can we be able to speak together and to speak about 50% of the refugees who are in our region, and we speak about the international conventions for migration of refugees, while there is an absence of the minimum coordination, and to have one objective, as I have mentioned to Einsteiner yesterday, under the name of the UN Special Envoy, I said we do not have social economic councils in our Arab countries at all that organizes our meetings in order to have this coordination from this region to Geneva or to New York. Thank you, His Highness. We are going to refer to you in completing what should take place during the coming period. But Dr. Zahia Hawass, now you have the floor. I want to speak about one issue only, which is a protocol, but we are colleagues together, so if I should convey the greetings of King Abdullah II, king of the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. There are a lot of the youth coming from Jordan who are greeting you. Thank you. Thank you, Your Highness. And thank you to Egypt and its people. We are going to come back to you once again, and this is one of the very rich sessions. We have very elite intellectual people with us, and we hope that we will take what the best ideas and perception at the least time. And thank you very much.
Dr. Zahia Hawass has prepared an overview of history with the application to the present. Excellency President Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, August Assembly, I'm honored to address to address you concerning the intercultural and civilizational conflict. I tried through the Pharaonic civilization to present to you the tolerance of this civilization and how it impacted the whole world. I produced these two papers to address this issue. I thought of presenting to the youth of the world coming from 100 countries to highlight the merits of this civilization, the grandeur of this civilization, and how when I go anywhere, I found that all people would speak about pyramids, Sphinx, Tutankhamun, the mummies. Miss Dina instructed me and told me to talk for only 5 minutes, and in the following session I would have an overhead presentation in English to address the youth of the world. I'd like to highlight a key point. If we talk about civilizations, we have to talk about the Pharaonic civilizations' grandeur. When we had 9/11, the whole world considered the Arab region as terrorists. A book was published, I hope it would be translated into Arabic, 1 year after 9/11, through the National Geography. They discuss these civilizations. The civilizations that spread the whole world came from the Arab region. Syria, Libya, Palestine, Arab Peninsula, and the grandeur of the Egyptian civilization. If we consider the Pharaonic civilization, archaeologists used to say that it ranks 2 when it comes to being an old age, and that civilization of Mesopotamia was ranked 1. This ranking of civilization has to do with writing. So 200 years before Egypt, the other civilization preceded in this respect. But the new excavations undertaken by German Goldenberg identified hieroglyphic inscription that this goes back to more than 5,000 years, because the ancient civilization goes to 7,000 years. This is not right. This is measured through writing, through the Pharaonic civilization. We have to discuss how it impacted the whole world, how it interacted with the neighboring regions. Was this based on warfare, bloodshed civilization? No. If you consider the Pharaonic civilization, we find that all was governed by peace. People always wonder how the pyramids were built. No, we have to consider how this pyramid built Egypt, because this grandeur cannot be through people who have confrontational attitude, but they have their point of strength in peace making. I managed through the Pharaonic civilization. Let me read out this. I read these 2 pages to highlight the grandeur of this civilization. When we talk about clashes of civilization, this is supposed to be through well-defined concepts, and not just a matter of presentation of theories based on subjective reading of certain incidents, be they political, economic, social, or cultural. Undoubtedly, through the past 5,000 years of the life cycle of this globe, the clash of civilizations of neighboring and faraway civilizations was inevitable to mobilize people and a catalyst for the progress of human civilization. If it were not for the cultural conflict in the Green Levant, we wouldn't have come up with outstanding civilizations like Sumeri, Ashuri, Babels. As for Egypt, the cultural civilization status of the country that established the first state in the broad sense of the word 3,200 years ago, the first state worldwide, BC. This was different when it comes to clashes of civilization. Egypt, through its ancient history, did not consider any neighboring civilization as a competitor or rival, or as an enemy to its own civilization. This led to the entrenchment of the Egyptian military in 2 main issues. First, the protection of the state borders is an issue that pertains to preserving the identity of the Egyptian state. And this is the situation at present. The power and strength of the military. 4,200 years ago, we had an issue in Sinai, a group of terrorists. They hid in a certain place and used as human targets women and children. This is inscribed in hieroglyphics. And this is the translation. The Egyptian soldier did not shoot a child or a woman. They went to a higher position and they were able to kill these terrorists by using arrows. Secondly, the protection of the Egyptian borders may require creation of front lines, safe front lines. Not just, trying to extend its borders, but these borders were not subject to changing, because the ancient Egyptians believed that the land of Egypt that the Egyptian citizen is destined to the land of Egypt. The eastern and western desert did not curb the interaction of the ancient civilization with its neighbors. The first archaeological evidence proven was the interaction between ancient civilizations stemming from Egypt, especially in Ma'adi, 5,000 years. Some claim that this interaction, communication, goes back to 7,000 years. They identified trade exchange between Egypt and the country of the two rivers. Through development, the old history developed, reaching the modern pharaonic or the golden age. Egypt was the safety valve to the Near East in the past, and all its kingdoms and the Egyptian military tried to the conflicting kingdoms in order to establish peace. Akhenaten eradicated all the customary traditions and abandoned the Egyptian regional role because he did not leave the capital. This led to the escalation of conflict between the Near East civilizations because Egypt was absent from the scene. One of the kings of the other kingdoms sent a message to the Egyptian king pleading to him to pass order for the Egyptian military to try to secure stability. They came back to the ordinary course. The El Asiawi expressed the importance of the role of the Egyptian military in the Near East, all Near East. The same king sent another message to the mother of Akhenaten, asking her to urge her son to understand the Egyptian role in trying to put an end to the cultural and civilizational conflict in the all Near East, which was mainly political in nature, trying to appropriate the natural resources. There was no ideological or religious conflict. Egypt, through its first establishment, understood the importance of the dissemination and promotion of Egyptian culture. Dr. Zaha, talking about old political conflict. It was political in nature. I'd go to the youth because the theme, the purpose of this session is to address theories like Fukuyama theory, who assumed that the whole world would have a liberal democratic regime. And this was abandoned. Another theory was emerged, like Hankton, concerning the clash of civilizations. Well, Dr. Zahe is reviewing with us the whole history, which is the origin of conflict that we experienced a few years ago. A conflict based on irrational bases. What we try to seek through this session, these theories, are we supposed to pay the bill in the future? This is in brief. I'd like to urge the youth who did not know about the clash of civilizations, please try to read about this theme. A key point would like to address that all youth, we have ushers and organizers to gather the questions. Please take note of the question or write it and your name and the country, and then you would pose the question to the panelists. I'd go back to Dr. Zahe. I'd ask Dr. Shibli with respect to the well-known political theories. As youth, we want to know the origin of the theories, their impact, Could they be changed or adapted? Or are they far from being real? Thank you, Excellency President, Excellencies Ministers, honorable guests. Good morning to Egypt, the people, the country, the cradle of civilization. Let me first start in Arabic and then I'll shift into English. So the introduction shall be in English and Arabic, and then I move to English. I'm going to cover 3 main points. The first issue, through my scientific research, I have opinion poll with respect to clashes of civilization, not only the USA, but in the Middle East region and other countries. How can we understand this topic and how it relates to identity, personal and political identity, and why this is ineffective idea that has far-reaching dimensions. It's used as a tool through hardliners to pursue this conflict. Then I'd go in passing quickly, conflict within the civilizations, and I would share with you what happens in the USA, the internal conflict in the USA through the opinion polls conducted. And third, what's the role of youth? We conduct studies to identify the role of youth. Let me shift into English, if you allow me, as I was advised by Mr. Mustafa to use both languages. My introduction was in Arabic and then I shift to English. Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, to just quickly address 3 points related to the question on the table. And the first one is the clash of civilization, why I think it is not only a bad idea, but it's a dangerous one. Why it is an instrument in the hands of extremists to perpetuate conflict. And at the core of it is really its connection to identity, how people identify themselves. And let me tell you a theory I have about what I say is we are what we have to defend. We are what we have to defend. We rally behind that aspect of our identity that we have to defend most. What does that mean? An Egyptian is at once an Arab, an African, an Egyptian, a Muslim or a Christian, a citizen of the world, and many other things. An Egyptian is all these things at the same time. It's not just one dimension. It's not just the Muslim or the Arab or the Egyptian. It's all these things at once. The question is, why does one rise to the top over the others? Under what circumstances do people say, I'm an Arab first, or I'm an Egyptian first, or I'm a Muslim first? Well, when an aspect of the self is most under assault, people rally behind it. So, for example, if people in Egypt believe that Islam itself is under assault, that the war that is being carried out by the West is really against Muslims, against the religion of Islam, people are going to assert their Muslim identity first. And vice versa. If Americans believe that they're being attacked because they're Western, or because of their faith, or because of their values, even despite their division, they become American first. That's why the more you put this thesis into play, the more it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. In fact, I say to people, when I talk about identity, how we are what we have to defend, I say, why is Barack Obama black? And people say, what do you mean, why is Barack Obama black? I said, why does he consider himself black? Why do people consider Barack Obama black? Barack Obama is half white and half black. And in fact, he's a little bit more white in that he spent more time with his white family, went to white schools. Why is he black? And I go back, we are what we have to defend. That is the aspect that he has to defend the most. And I leave that with you. That's why I think the thesis is bad. The second point I want to make is that very often the conflict within civilizations, within countries, within cultures, is much bigger than across cultures and across civilizations. I'll give you an example now in terms of what we're facing in the United States of America. People say America as if we are just one nation. We are. America is a powerful, proud nation. But America is deeply, deeply divided across the board, theoretically, ideologically, value system. And I'll give you some examples from my polling. For example, when we ask a question about do people support the travel ban that the president put on the table against mostly people from some Muslim majority countries, what do we find? We find almost 90% of Republicans support it, and almost 90% of Democrats oppose it. 90% and 90%. That is a divide we don't find between America and Egypt, between America and Saudi Arabia even, between America and any country. The divide inside America is bigger than the divide across the board. And that gets lost in the translation when we're focused mostly on the conflict of civilization. So let me end with one final point, which bears directly on the forum, the young people. Where are the young people on this? Where are they? Well, here's the interesting thing. First of all, most Americans, by the way, just across the board, don't believe there's a clash of civilizations. Don't believe that Islam and the West are incompatible.
احنا لو خدنا فرنساوي عربي هنا
لا
هنا
عربي بس.
ايوه عربي، لو بيعملوا فرنش عربي احنا عايزينه هنعمل هنا.
كل ده صح؟
لا واحدة، لا أول واحدة، تاني واحدة دي العربي، لأن بعد كده إنجلش فرنش.
Meeting Americans. But what it is that we finally get to understand that we define people by this abstraction and aspect that people label Islam or Muslim identity, when in fact when they meet them, they find that they're talking about common jobs, they're talking about food, they're talking about education, they're talking about boyfriend and girlfriend, they're talking about everything else. And we find that among young people, that's more true because of the internet, actually, because they're connecting with people across the board, and they're far more empathetic, not because they have a romantic idea of the other, they know that, but it normalizes people. It makes them more real. Most young people don't wake up in the morning thinking clash of civilization. They wake up in the morning, they want a good education, they want a good job.
Maybe politicians do.
The what?
Maybe politicians only do this.
Well, perhaps,
yeah.
But by the way, that's global. That's across the board. If you look at polls in every country in the world, the priorities are really about roughly the same price. So let me end just with where I started, which is it's a bad thesis that we must defeat as an idea because it is the wrong one, and we are what we have to defend, and therefore it's much better to reach out to the other than to attack them and threaten them. During the election campaign, by the way, in America, we had a slogan, young people had a slogan which says, love trumps hate. Now, that was considered by a lot of people to be naive.
Yeah.
I don't think it's naive at all. I think that the more you display empathy with the other, the more you understand that they're more like you.
Thank you so much. بنشكر دكتور شبلي على هذه الكلمة عظيمة. دكتور شبلي وكأنه بيلخص فكرة أنه أن تعرف أكثر عن الآخر بيشيل من قصادنا حواجز كتيرة جدا هي الأصل في.
That is the core of conflicts. The core of conflict is not differences. Now I move to Mr. John. According to Huntington theory, you may change your opinion, but you cannot change your cultural heritage as if the cultural legacy is an issue and as if difference is problematic. How do you consider difference and the differences among...
Je vous remercie. Monsieur le Président de la République, autorité en vos qualités et chers jeunes, je vous propose aujourd'hui de vous livrer quelques idées de réflexion sur la différence et la complémentarité qu'il y a entre conflit.
For thought to consider conflict and integration with respect to cultures and civilizations. Allow me at the onset to read out a quotation from a Singali historian, Saint Arthur Jopp, that wrote 20 years ago. We don't have to insist on what's in the word, especially in the Hellenic word. And he acknowledges for Egypt, the cradle of civilization. I concur with those who say that Egypt is the cradle of civilization. We cannot overlook this cultural legacy manifests in the land of Egypt, Egyptian people, and all what pertains to Egypt. After this introduction, I'll modestly try to provide a definition for cultures and civilizations. The Anthropological Academy explains that we can accept or agree or disagree with this explanation. The communities progress according to two dimensions. First, the civilization that embraces all that's material, meaning culture, industry, and numerous crafts. The second dimension is the culture that embraces all that's intellectual, artistic, cultural, religious, spiritual, and what pertains to the spirit and values. These two dimensions are intercomplementary. We cannot try to rank them. It's not a progressive approach, but what's really important to reach the nation. The nation is defined through its culture and civilization. Therefore, I'd go willingly to talk about the Egyptian civilization, as Professor Hawass has mentioned, the role across borders. This definition allows me to identify three proven issues: communication, culture, and civilization. The human being communicates and outreaches, communicates through the interrelated cultures that try to identify points of communication among the different cultures and civilizations. When there are people from different cultures, they interact together. Once this happens, they would include their own cultural traits. They act as ambassadors to their own cultures. We have one point to answer what relates to the so-called clash of civilizations. We cannot enter into a clash today with people who we communicate with the civilization is considered the common property for all nations. It's the outcome of interdependence of different activities at the political and social levels, with the purpose to reach the ultimate goal, mainly to live together. This leads to employing the three major values of our existence: religion, and what relates to religion, politics, and at the political level, what intersects both of them would be the cultural aspect. This would lead us to add a new dimension to live together and communicate actively. Civilization has to be an extension of the common property of all countries and nations. This thought gives room for communication and outreach. Many have insisted on the need for interaction and communication. Cultures and civilizations provide for new pretext for this communication exchange. We're not supposed to believe that civilization would vanish through history, customs and traditions, books, knowledge, and other issues. Civilization is far from being so, but it's established, progressively established. It has its own past, present, and future. And civilizations are built, aim for further progress. We are not supposed to become oblivious of the past. We have presented examples of destruction of museums and buildings. Regardless of the heritage and the different aspects, the assailants there is no justification for this attitude. As I previously mentioned, civilizations have their own past, present, future. When I communicate with another person, I provide examples of my own culture and civilization. Through interaction, the other party shall analyze these components. Perhaps he would accept part of the civilization and disagree to what does not resemble his own culture. But this would ensure cultural interaction. Destruction, demolition of buildings, especially Palmyra. This is a manifestation of weakness, fragility, and apprehensions. We only destroy what we really fear, whereas what we do not fear, we tend to analyze, understand, accept, or approve or disapprove. Boucheron, the French historian, had his own work in the 15th century where he analyzed history in a horizontal manner. He smartly proved that civilizations relate to common denominators. I would like to cite an example, simple example. During wars and curfew in Istanbul, Sultan then saw in the horizons of Constantinople, which was not Istanbul then, he saw a dense cloud loaded with dust that encircles Istanbul. The Sultan saw this. There were several interpretations for what he saw. It was later explained after a few decades and centuries that during the same period that there was a volcano from the Pacific Ocean burst, and it reached the sky and formed this cloud. So they were established the Ottoman civilization. As well as the history of the Pacific Ocean, there is a correlation between both, and this is a critical issue that emphasizes the correlations among the different historical and cultural regions. Egypt, the country that hosts this event, actually represents a gathering point for civilizations. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Francois. Mr. Francois mentioned a key statement: we only destroy what we fear, but what we understand we're exposed to. I'd ask Mr. Davidge about the youth who presented less destructive means of communication compared to any other solutions. The youth provided the communication networks. It was supposed that this would lead to the advancement of the world. Do you believe that the youth have a future role in order to adapt the type of relation among the different civilizations and cultures?
Your mic?
I try again.
Thank you.
I think this helps. His Excellency, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, young people, all the young people here, distinguished gentlemen in the panel here. It's a great pleasure, honor for me to be here and have a chance to say a few things about my work as director of the Danish Egyptian Dialogue Institute, and also tell something about my approach to the questions raised. But I would like to start in another place, a little different, because what I have been thinking about when I was invited to speak at this session, in this panel, I was thinking about the title: Differences in Cultures and Civilizations, Conflict or Integration. Now, we all know, and the earlier speaker also touched upon this, that this is very much based on a thesis called, in general, The Class of Civilizations by Samuel P. Huntington, which came out in around 1993, in an article in 1993. This has got a life of its own, as my predecessor also said, that is nearly becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a story about how people meet. Now, how people meet with different cultures, with different civilizations, with different religions, that has been sort of going around and become a part of the general talk. And I think that's very, very dangerous, because I can say for sure that there are academics who have refuted, especially the historical part of the articles on class of civilization, very elegantly refuted those parts. And one could also say, does this look like the world we know, us in this room, the world we know, that the world consists of civilizations which are large sort of plates, closed plates, that meet at fault lines where all the crises sort of erupt? Is that something we can recognize? I cannot recognize it personally. My personal life is a life where I have connections across into all civilizations, across religions, countries, etc. And I'm sure that this is also the case for most of the people in here. And if I think about the people, the young people, this is exactly where new development is coming. You all have networks that go across cultures, across civilizations. Something that breaks up this whole idea of us living on plates of different civilizations that should meet in conflict zones. Now, one thing, as a little curiosum, I noticed last night at the grand opening here at the Youth Forum, I noticed one thing that I thought maybe have something to do with this. And this is that we had some time, and at some point, some of the young people in the room, they started playing with the camera. They waved to the camera, they raised flags to the camera, they showed their mobile phones to the camera. And in less than a quarter of an hour, rules were understood for this game by all the young people who were in the room. Everybody understood right away how to have fun, how to work in this game. This is across cultures, across civilizations, geographical distances, and across religion and all these things which are implied, which lie in the thesis of Huntington. So I think that just last night showed that, there are good reasons that we should not let the ideas of Huntington sort of lead our thinking. Then this was one thing I would like to say. The other thing is, I was also thinking a little more about the title, the differences in cultures and civilizations, conflict or integration. Now, I must say, as director of the Danish-Egyptian Dialogue Institute, I have a problem. I just tease you now. I have a problem with the word integration. Because I don't see in my work, in my daily work, in trying to make dialogue, conversations, common work, partnerships between Denmark and Egypt, and by the way, also Europe and the rest of the Arab Middle East. In my daily work, I don't see it as if we are going to integrate. I don't see the opposition to conflict as being integration. I see the opposition being dialogue, talk together, respect for differences. This is so important. And it also somewhat implies that we should sort of dissolve our own culture in order to be something same, all of us. Yeah? I don't think so. I think actually, if you want, and this is also our experience, if you want to go into dialogue, what is absolutely important is that you know your own history and heritage, that you have confidence in your own history and heritage. You know who you are. Because two people who stand across each other, in front of each other, where none of them know who they actually are, they will never get into a dialogue. People who know who they are, they know and have confidence in order to go into a discussion. And they will also, because if you know about your background, your culture, your heritage, etc., you will also be able to see where is it I should move in the dialogue, where is it I should stay, what is it the new here, what is it that the partner in the conversation, in the dialogue, can give me, can bring me. So I was just a little talking against this integration in the title, but of course this is open for discussions. So with this, I think I will stop for now and say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for keeping the time. مستر هانس نيلسون قال حاجة أعتقد بتتقال كده في أوساط المثقفين، يعني إنه الشخص المتحقق، يعني اللي عارف هو مين وبيعمل إيه، بيبقى شخص أقل تسارعاً وما بيبقاش شخص مزعج في التعاملات. عشان كده نروح لوزير الشباب مستر يودوفيتشي. عايز أسأل حضرتك بصفتك وزيراً للشباب، الدور اللي ممكن أو الشكل الجديد، هل تعتقد إنه في أجيال جديدة من الشباب أكثر قدرة على الانفتاح بسبب
on account of one form of education that may be different, a different culture perhaps, that has made them better able to open up, or is that non-existent?
I will address on behalf of my President, His Excellency Mr. Alexander Vučić. Then I will answer on the question. Esteemed President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, distinguished heads of delegation, international organization, religious communities, Your Excellencies, and most important, dear young people. On behalf of the President of Republic of Serbia, Alexander Vučić, and all the people of the Republic of Serbia, I would like to express my respect to the youth of friendly Egypt, since our future and the future of the entire world is in the hands of young people. It is my privilege to have the opportunity to represent Serbia at this forum, especially because His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has extended an invitation to my President in inviting Serbia to be here today. I'm proud to know that Serbia and Egypt have been together during the 20th century, ever since the establishment of diplomatic relations 1907, never against each other. The Republic of Serbia, as successor state of the former Yugoslavia, has every moral right to speak about the bright pages of 20th century history when leaders Tito, Nasser, and Nehru established non-aligned movement. Serbia believes in the potential of its youth and has a full institutional framework in place. The ministry in charge of youth, law of youth, and the national youth strategy. Young people have been included as equal and highly important partners because we need them as active participants in the society. Serbia is specifically focused on establishment of youth offices. Of 170 municipalities in Serbia, currently 127 have active youth offices. Youth offices are a mechanism providing different services to youth locally in informal education, quality leisure time, volunteering, and others. Serbia supports strengthening of the youth civil sector through regular funding of projects, youth organization capacity building, assistance to informal youth groups and young individuals. The Serbian Youth Umbrella Organization has been recently established with the support of Ministry of Youth and Sport as an independent youth representative body, now part of the European Youth Forum. The Republic of Serbia gives particular attention on young talents. The Ministry of Youth and Sports has included since 2008 the Fund for Young Talents. Awards and scholarships are awarded to the best high school and university students, more than 22,600 so far. On the international level, we have been recognized as one of the leaders dealing with youth-related themes. The time we live in, faced with the new challenges, but I'm sure that you, young people of Egypt, together with the young people from Serbia and all around the world, will find the proper response to these challenges. If you learn from each other, we shall be able to deal with the current challenges. All mankind must fully cooperate in order to respond to global terrorist threats. However, we should not ignore the fact that poverty, difficult social position, and marginalization are some of the main factors for terrorism. By eliminating it, terrorist organizations will no longer be able to act. Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, and attempts to rewrite the history of the 20th century in some parts of the world can only be eliminated through cooperation among young people. That is why this meeting is so important. It provides us with an opportunity to get to know each other, hear each other, to get closer, and see that we are not that different. I would like to thank the President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, for recognizing this necessity and making it possible for us to meet today. At the end, I want to add something personally, to share something with all young people here in this room. I think that it's very important. Before that I became a Minister of Youth and Sport, I was the professional water polo player. And I started practicing when I had 9 years. In that momentum, I didn't know what I will become, but in that momentum, I knew that I want to be the captain of the national team, that I want to attend on Olympic Games, to win the medal on Olympic Games, and to be the best water polo player in the world. And in that momentum, I realized that I need to practice, to work, to believe, and to dream. And I done it, all of that in my life, because I believed, I worked so hard every day, hard work. At the end, yes, I became a best water polo player in the world. But I never stopped believing in myself, and I never stopped dreaming about huge, huge things that I can do in my life. And for that reason, dear young people from all around the world, don't stop believing in yourselves, don't stop dreaming, don't stop work hard every day, because today you are representatives of your young youth bodies, your countries, but tomorrow your next leaders, next doctors, next, entrepreneurs. Please do your best and touch your dreams, touch your wishes, and believe in yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, thank you, Mr. Yudovic, because your testimony, you're not only a minister, but you are a sports champion. So your testimony worth and well tried. سؤالي لدكتور مصطفى الفقي، عايز أسأل حضرتك.
I need to ask you, sir, about the ethical code. Dr. Mustafa is usually applauded before he even speaks. My question to you is about this ethical code, because sometimes there is an opinion which indicates that the criterion of a civilization is the ethics of its holders. How can we say that simply? How can that become? That the ethical code is the criterion of civilization. Your Excellency, the President of Egypt, Dr. Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, ladies and gentlemen, yes. Civilizations is an ethical construction and a cultural makeup that is based on a number of values and traditions and behaviors. And we have not seen a civilization that has spread without ethical pillars. Otherwise, it would have been eliminated after a few years. What is of concern here is to underline that the definition of civilization by the philosophers of civilization is that it's a system of values and traditions that are related to a culture of a people. It is directly related to the concept of culture, the normal human behavior, which would have a bearing on the various facets of life. And as such, I am surprised that the Western thought has exported to us two theories at the same time after the fall of the communism, which is globalization and the clash of civilizations. And it is strange to see that they are completely contradictory, as though thought is being tailored to its vested interests. Globalization is the flow of ideas and funds, and opening of borders in a full-fledged opening. As for the clash of civilization, it is the opposite that holds true, where barriers are set and where fears are being established, exchange one among the various civilizations and cultures. As such, the theory of Samuel Huntington actually carries a lot of inadequacies, because it has been designed for the creation of enemies and clashes, and I claim that it has contributed theoretically in feeding some of the terrorism ideas, because it has made terrorism equal directly, a direct equal to the human community, and has given it more than it deserves. Terrorism is a major threat, and I would like to greet the President of Egypt that he has yesterday added another element, another rule, another international rule that we all have to observe, which is that war against terrorism is one of the human rights. This expression has to spread further, to be disseminated, and to have a bearing everywhere. I'm not undermining the value of terrorism and its threats. It is the common enemy of civilizations. Civilization is a form of construction that is based on arts and literature and knowledge. It's the creation of life, while terrorism is the creation of death and destruction, desolation, fear, anxiety. Have we ever heard that one civilization has had a negative stance from another civilization and has refused to deal with it? This is not true whatsoever. Communication is the basis. Has any civilization claimed that it has created the wheel and has decided to not use that? There is a communication that is ongoing and which gives and that makes civilizations actually in a communicative process together. I remember that when I worked in India over years, 30 years back, I used to like so much to look to the east from India towards China, so that we can find that the more east we go, we have found that there were impacts of China, and the more we go west, we find that there are Indian impacts, until the whole area was called the Indian-Chinese region. So the various forms of communication and interaction is a civilization feature, and it is not conflict. That is the main cornerstone of civilization, even in the Gulf area. And I was in the book fair a few days ago. You will sense that there are overlaps between the Arab cultures and some of the Indian influences coming from the Ocean, you find that in cuisine and in some architectural designs and in language. They tell you Sida, that means go directly over the road. This is an Indian saying. So we have to acknowledge that the relation between civilization is one of merging and overlap, and a lot have become aware. I can remind you of Prince Charles and his lecture in Oxford in 1993, and his lecture also in 2006 in Al-Azhar University, when he talked very clearly and said, talked about the importance of the Islamic civilization in the Western development and in the development of ideas. And I've asked him once, from where did you get, Your Highness, this strong feeling or this impression about the Islamic civilization? He said it started by my good impression of Islamic architecture. So I have read about Islam and I've respected its ideas even before being Boutros Ghali, my great professor and the professor of everyone here, when he was elected as a Secretary General of the United Nations. I have heard him with my own ears. I've heard the announcer in the BBC saying Boutros Ghali has been elected as a Secretary General of the UN. He's an Arab but not a Muslim. He's an African but he's not black. He's an Egyptian but he is very rich. He is an Egyptian but he is rich, contrary to the majority of Egyptians at that time. As such, there is a continuous attempt to fragment the basis of identity and destroying it. Here I would like to warn you that that was exported to us has been meant to fragment us and to dismantle us, and was never meant to get us to merge and interact. Civilizations communicate by necessity and do not know anything about ethnic discrimination. It refuses that and assimilates everyone without any discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, become aware that the Arab Islamic civilization under which we exist has opened its heart and its mind and its doors to the Jews and the Christians through a full-fledged participation. They have constructed with us. Many may not know that in Cairo alone there is more than 7 Jewish temples, 9 maybe. Zawahiri is better informed. And such temples are opened for the exercise of teachings. Did anyone Egyptian, did he throw a stone at one of those temples in 1956 or 67 or 73? This never occurred. It is this great people, this highly civilized people, that is fully aware that civilization is one human civilization, as already been mentioned by His Highness Prince Hassan a while ago. I will stop here out of fear of the terrorism exercised by Dina Abdelkrim, so as to possibly speak later. And thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Mustafa. Before concluding the first part of the session, we still have one very important question to Mr. Hizal Bekinov about the idea of balance, striking a balance between maintaining identity and open up to others. Mr. Shibli, we also have to hear him talking about creating public awareness. But this will be in the second part of the session when we continue the session after 45 minutes from now. But before concluding, yes, sure. You are the second Zawel.
ممكن حضرتك تكتب لنا اللي عايز.
Will you write down what you want to say and to possibly say that over the second part of the session? I would like to thank you so much. Struggle in the name of humans. I would like to thank you without being... Anyway, let me remind you that in the second part... Thank you. I'm asserting we will hear you. The rest of the young people who wanted to pose questions, we have many questions posed. We shall continue with the session over the next part. There is a decent way of posing questions. Please write that down. Your Excellency, do you have any comment before concluding? Why don't you come here, please?
تعال اتفضل اتفضل تعال.
الرئيس عندك حظك مش سامع في البيت.
انا هستأذنكم مش هنحولها.
Please allow me. We shall not shout in this session, not because we are unable to respond, but because this is not a civilized way of managing or facilitating discussions. His Excellency, I want to tell you, we're doing all this so that this is for all the youth of Egypt and the world. Take care. I'm not talking about love now. I just want to tell you that we are expressing ourselves. We are expressing ourselves. And everything that we're saying here and the methods by which we talk is something that is seen by everyone. And we are judged. Which is why I'm telling you, come closer and say whatever you want. Please do so. I'm so sorry. Hello to you in the World Youth Forum. Hello to His Highness Prince Hassan. I'm an Egyptian scientist, sir, and I've been working for 3 years on the kidney failure, and we have created a possibly plantable artificial kidney. From now on, we will have no kidney failure. That is because my father has died 3 years ago because of kidney failure, and since then I have dealt with this disease as an enemy, and I've spared no effort, and I've worked with the Academy of Scientific Research and the Research Center and the Faculty of Medicine. We want to pass on our voices. But the President told me to speak. I do understand that this is the main word, but science is a culture when it transcends from one country to another. 5 minutes, we had a report that we wanted to present yesterday, but we were unable to reach out to you. We were talking to which extent the world will see Egypt, the image of Egypt, as it is combating this disease. Egypt is in this CD. Please hear that and see that so that you can know to which extent there are efforts underway. We would like to thank you so much. Thank you, Your Excellency, for having afforded him this opportunity. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I wanted to hear your comment on what already has been said, but you always have an open heart. We shall continue this session after 45 minutes from now. Still, the questions are very pertinent, and more questions are to be posed in the second part of the session. Thank you so much.